Cat Hamry, age 68, and her devoted dog Tootsie set off on a trip through the stunning scenery of Canyon del Diablo, often known as Devil's Canyon, on April 11, 2019. The canyon is located in Baja California, in Mexico's Sierra de San Pedro Marte National Park, close to San Felipe. Cat, suffering from a recent foot injury, chose to take a break by a swimming pool as the others carried on. But when they returned, she was gone. Frantic searching covered every square inch of the rough terrain, but they were unable to locate Cat or her dog's paw prints. All that was left was an unfathomable emptiness where she had disappeared. In the intense heat, how did a woman with 3 broken toes and her loyal dog vanish from sight? Every question was more menacing than the last as they lingered in the stifling canyon air. Devil's Canyon's eerie quiet seemed to mock the searchers, its winding paths and deep ravines keeping the truth hidden, guarded by nature itself. The area seemed to have swallowed her whole, leaving behind only the sound of her final footsteps, the conversations she'd had with her hiking group, and the icy, unwavering stare of the desert sun. The answer to the chilling riddle of what happened that day is hidden somewhere deep in the Sierra de San Pedro Marte. And the mystery? It beckons with an unsettling stillness. Although Cat Hamry had spent nearly 20 years living in Mexico, she was born in Seattle, Washington. Her daughter, Desiree Blair, described her mother as a tough individual, an experienced hiker with deep local knowledge. Despite undergoing chemotherapy for liver cancer in 2018, which left her frail, she kept hiking. She was determined. Cat and her husband, Warren Sundquist, had been married for just a year. In fact, April 11th, the day she vanished, was their anniversary, but things hadn't been perfect. Just days before the climb, Desiree says her mother and Warren had gotten into a heated argument and split up. Cat, furious, moved her belongings back to her townhouse. But the very next day or so, they talked over the phone and decided to get back together. The cause of their fight? Strange. Cat had fallen asleep at a neighbor's house without leaving Warren a message. Feeling insulted and upset, Warren told her to move out. Desiree questioned this. Why was her mother really at the neighbor's? Why had Warren reacted so strongly? When Cat and Warren arrived at the canyon, one of the 2 trucks wasn't working properly. So Warren and Dave, the husband of another hiker named Nicole, decided to stay behind with the vehicles. Meanwhile, Cat and Tootsie headed out with the rest of the group toward the first set of pools, aiming to reach the waterfall at the top. It's worth noting, this was supposed to be their anniversary, and yet, Cat was hiking alone. There was already tension between her and Warren. Most would expect a couple to spend their special day together, especially after reuniting from a split. But Warren insisted on staying in the Jeep, for reasons that remain unclear. About 10 minutes into the hike, near one of the canyon's stunning pools, Cat told the 6 others she needed a break, her gait slowed by a previous foot injury. Devil's Canyon is one of San Felipe's lesser-known tourist destinations, and it's easy to see why. There's no cell service. The terrain is rugged. Access by vehicle, extremely limited. Picacho del Diablo, Baja's highest peak at over 10,000 feet, is the base of this breathtaking but unforgiving canyon. There's danger here. Visitors are urged to exercise caution because of the brutal heat and other risks. The US government warns Americans to exercise extreme caution when visiting Baja California, given the high rate of crime. According to the Washington Post, over 500 Americans are currently missing in Mexico. In a blog post dated April 5th, 2019, Cat mentioned she had broken 2 toes on her right foot. Then, just days later, a man pulling an ice chest full of beer accidentally rolled over her left foot. Still, she promised the others she'd wait by the pool while they completed the 90-minute round trip to the waterfall. Tootsie would enjoy splashing in the water, She sat at the pool's edge. After a brief chat with Nicole, the group moved on. That was the last time anyone saw Cat. No one thought much of her decision to stay behind. But now, it raises serious questions. Why did they leave her alone in the desert? You never split from someone in a desert hike. Not in Mexico, not anywhere. Roughly 90 minutes later, the group returned. Cat and her dog were gone. They assumed she must have walked back to the trailhead to reunite with Warren. But Warren hadn't seen her. And when they returned to the parking lot to double-check, she wasn't there either. Reports suggest that Cat wasn't in serious physical pain at the time, but with the 90-degree heat, her cancer history, and her broken toes, she wouldn't have gone far. Local search and rescue, along with the Mexican military, began combing the area on April 12th. There were 5 trained dogs, volunteers, civil protection officers, the army, the fire department, and the Red Cross. It was a windy day when the cadaver dogs arrived, and they couldn't pick up her scent. Not a single trace of her, or her dog. 34 kilometers northwest of San Felipe, law enforcement discovered and destroyed 2 marijuana plants. Though some questioned whether the trekking group was connected, it's unclear if police ever considered them serious suspects. Just 4 days after Cat's disappearance, on Monday, April 15th, 2019, search efforts were officially called off. State Civil Protection. Chief Antonio Rosas announced the cancellation. The case was handed over to the State Attorney General. Rosas said the team had searched a 5-kilometer radius around her last known location. Nothing. Warren, her husband, stayed at the trailhead parking lot the night she vanished, while others went to alert the Red Cross. He was older than Cat, and perhaps had fallen asleep in his Jeep after drinking all day. Still, it was odd. He didn't join the initial search. He wasn't out looking. Desiree arrived in San Felipe soon after, hoping to help. But by then, the official search had already ended. Warren showed her a picture of a stick cross he'd made, to place at the trail as a memorial. She was troubled. Her mother had only been missing a few days, and already Warren was preparing to say goodbye. He did, however, join unofficial search efforts after authorities stepped back. Warren, along with friends and volunteers, searched areas like a nearby cattle ranch and spoke with locals. No one had seen Cat or her dog. The group even visited the marijuana grow site and spoke to some Haitian men nearby. They were standoffish, refused to answer questions. Suspicious, but ultimately, the police had already searched the area. Nothing came of it. Kevin, another hiker, flew a drone over the canyon, but its short battery life and the overgrown terrain made visibility difficult. That year, the region had more rain than usual. Thick brush covered the ground. Cat's clothes weren't desert appropriate. She wore K-Swiss tennis shoes, khaki shorts, and a white tank top. Her hair had recently been dyed ruby red to support breast cancer charities. But even with her bright hair, the drone found no trace. Desiree had to return home to her kids, but stayed in touch with Warren. He followed up with the Baja California State Attorney General's office for a while, but then he stopped. After a few weeks, Desiree says Warren no longer asked for updates. He told her, "They'll contact me if they find anything." Once the case was handed to the State Attorney General's office, it faded from public view. Unless the family pushed, nothing moved. Detectives were rotated every few months. No one followed up. No one reached out. Desiree felt alone, powerless from afar. She put up posters around town, but nothing came of it. And then came the cruelest twist. Desiree received a text. Someone claimed they had her mother. They wanted money. For a moment, hope surged. Could Cat still be alive? But it was a scam, a cruel, disgusting con. Only 2 people had her new number. Warren, and a man she later suspected had scammed Nicole's mother 2 years earlier for thousands. Warren said he knew the man, claimed he'd even confronted him, but nothing came of it. No arrest, not even questioning. Desiree tried to contact the FBI. They said it was out of their jurisdiction. The man was in Mexico. Still, extortion is illegal in both countries. And yet, nothing. Since that final sighting in April 2019, Cat Hamry and her dog Tootsie have never been seen again. Not a single trace, not a clue, not a sound, just a vanished woman and a canyon full of silence. The disappearance of 77-year-old Elizabeth O'Prey in the rugged wilderness of Australia's Blue Mountains remains one of the region's most perplexing and heartbreaking mysteries. Known for her independent spirit and gentle demeanor, Elizabeth, often called Betty by those who knew her, was reported missing on a Monday night after concerned family members realized she hadn't returned home. Elizabeth lived in Medlow, Bath, a small village perched near the highest point of the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. What began as a routine search effort quickly evolved into a large-scale rescue operation, as authorities, volunteers, and local residents came together in the hopes of bringing her home safely. Days into the search, there was a glimmer of hope. A resident in the Megalong Valley reported hearing cries for help around 6:45 p.m. on Friday. When police began searching the nearby 6-foot track, a well-known hiking trail, they too heard desperate calls echoing through the valley. This moment renewed energy and urgency in the search, shifting the focus to the area around Peckman's Plateau and the Fibula Lookout of Katoomba. Inspector Sonia Taba, who led the search operation, described the landscape as treacherous. Dense bushland and steep cliffs made navigation extremely difficult. She explained that in such environments, voices could travel long distances, complicating efforts to pinpoint the exact source of the cries. Despite the deployment of more than 90 volunteers, police personnel, aerial searches using the Polar helicopter, and ground support from trail bikes, locating Elizabeth proved nearly impossible in the unforgiving terrain. Adding to the concern was Elizabeth's medical condition. She was known to take stroke medication, which in some individuals can cause confusion. Authorities feared she might be disoriented, unable to retrace her steps, or provide accurate information about her whereabouts. On Tuesday evening, approximately 24 hours after she was first reported missing, rescuers managed to contact Elizabeth via her mobile phone. She was reportedly calm, said she was all right, but admitted she was lost and unable to describe her location. That brief conversation would become the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. The search had to be temporarily suspended on Friday evening due to deteriorating weather conditions, but resumed the following day. The local community, deeply moved by the situation, rallied in support of the rescue efforts. Sylvia Swords, a community member, told news outlets that while the situation was heartbreaking, everyone understood the immense difficulty posed by the terrain. At the peak of the operation, hundreds of volunteers gave their time and energy, determined to bring Elizabeth back to her family. Despite their dedication, Elizabeth O'Prey was never found. An inquest held in February in Katoomba reviewed the circumstances of her disappearance. The court heard how police had spoken with Elizabeth by phone, but she was unable to provide details of her location. She was last believed to be wearing an olive-colored jacket, jeans, and black shoes. Described as thin, with short grey hair, and of Caucasian appearance, Elizabeth was a familiar and well-loved figure in her neighborhood. Her case left a deep impact on the community. Inspector Tabor publicly acknowledged the overwhelming support of volunteers and emphasized the selflessness shown during the search. The determination and compassion demonstrated in those crucial days following Elizabeth's disappearance are still remembered by those who took part, even though the outcome was not what they had hoped for. Today, the story of Elizabeth O'Prey remains an unresolved chapter in the history of the Blue Mountains. With no conclusive evidence to explain what happened, her fate remains a mystery. Her family continues to seek answers, and the memory of a resilient woman lost in the wilderness still echoes among the trees, where voices once called out, hoping she might be found. The mysterious disappearance of 86-year-old Patrick Carnes in April 2011 remains one of Nevada's most baffling missing person cases. A devoted family man and retired systems manager, Patrick was in remarkably good health for his age and deeply cherished his dog, Lucky, a Labrador and Akita mix. In the spring of 2011, Patrick drove from Reno, Nevada to Ohio with Lucky to visit family and explore retirement home options. He was considering relocating to be closer to loved ones and spent several days on the road during the round trip. Nothing about the journey out east raised any concerns. As Patrick began his return drive to Reno, he appeared to be in good spirits. He remained in contact with family, was alert and self-sufficient. All signs pointed to a safe trip home. But something changed during that final leg of the journey. On the evening of April 13th, Patrick was pulled over for a minor traffic violation near Wells, Nevada. The officer noted that he had been following a tractor-trailer too closely and had failed to slow down or change lanes as required. During their brief conversation, Patrick mentioned that the truck driver he was following was heading toward Elko, the same town where Patrick planned to spend the night. This detail stands out as especially strange. No one has ever come forward as the truck driver Patrick referenced. It's assumed the two may have spoken earlier, perhaps at a rest stop or fuel station, but the nature of their interaction is unknown. To make matters more frustrating, the dashcam footage from the patrol car was too low resolution to capture identifying details about the truck. The officer described Patrick as polite, lucid, and even joking that he wouldn't drive at night again. It would be the last confirmed interaction anyone had with him. Patrick was seen later that night at a gas station in Wells before continuing west on Interstate 80. Whether he ever reached Elko remains unknown. Surveillance cameras along his route were not functioning at the time, erasing a crucial opportunity to trace his movements. The following morning, on April 14th, Patrick's green Subaru Forester was discovered abandoned in a remote area near Winnemucca, Nevada, roughly 200 miles from his intended destination. Even more puzzling was that the vehicle was facing east, the opposite direction of where he had been heading. The car showed no signs of mechanical failure. It had gas and appeared to be in working order. A single set of footprints was found leading away from the vehicle, but it was never confirmed if they belonged to Patrick. Some reports stated that all his belongings, including Lucky's leash and food, were still inside. Others noted that his wallet was missing, though he was known to carry cash rather than credit cards. Regardless, both Patrick and Lucky had vanished without a trace. His family grew immediately concerned when he failed to call and confirm that he'd made it home safely. Something completely out of character. Two of his sons visited his apartment and found it empty, confirming what authorities had already discovered during an earlier wellness check. The Humboldt County Sheriff's Department launched a massive search operation involving ground teams, K-9 units, and aerial support. Despite hundreds of hours spent combing the area, no sign of Patrick or Lucky was ever found. Given Patrick's age and the fact that he walked with a limp, it seemed unlikely he could have traveled far into the rough terrain on his own. Both his loved ones and investigators were baffled. The idea that he simply wandered off didn't align with what anyone knew about him. Years later, the case remains unsolved. No leads, no suspects, and no clear answers. Some believe Patrick may have encountered someone with malicious intent, possibly linked to the unidentified truck driver. Others speculate that he may have stopped to help someone in need, or that he and Lucky became disoriented in the desert. But without surveillance footage, witnesses, or physical evidence, all theories remain purely speculative. Patrick Carnes lived a rich and accomplished life. Born in 1925 in Cleveland, Ohio, he served in the Navy during World War II before earning a degree from UCLA. He worked for the prestigious Rand Corporation, raised a family, and maintained his independence well into his 80s. After the passing of his beloved wife, Margaret, he found constant companionship in Lucky. For someone with such a full and well-documented life, it is all the more heartbreaking that his final moments remain shrouded in mystery. Claudia Lawrence, a chef at the University of York, vanished without a trace on March 18, 2009, leaving behind one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in recent British history. Despite extensive police investigations, widespread media coverage, and significant public interest, no definitive answers have emerged about what happened to her. The case has generated multiple theories, yet no confirmed conclusions. Claudia's last known movements began when she finished work at 2:30 p.m. on March 18th. A friend saw her walking home and offered her a lift, dropping her off at her cottage on Heworth Road at approximately 3 p.m. 2:50 p.m. She was later seen posting a letter before returning home around 3 p.m. That evening, at approximately 8 p.m., she exchanged text messages with a friend and spoke to her mother on the phone. Her mother later recalled that Claudia sounded cheerful and relaxed. This conversation would be the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. The following morning, Claudia failed to show up for work. Her manager attempted to call her, but received no answer. At the time, her phone was still turned on, only to be deliberately switched off at 8:12 a.m. that same day. She was also supposed to meet her close friend Susie Cooper that evening, but never arrived. Concerned by her absence, Cooper contacted Claudia's father, who then entered her home. Inside, there were no immediate signs of a struggle, but 3 key items were missing: her rucksack, mobile phone, and work uniform. These missing belongings suggested that Claudia had left for work that morning as usual. However, her unexplained absence and the sudden silence from her phone raised immediate concerns. Police launched an investigation that led to 2 reported sightings of Claudia. The first came from a cyclist who claimed to have seen a woman resembling her talking to a man at 5:35 a.m. on March 19th at Melrose Gate, a location along her usual route to work. The second sighting, reported 30 minutes later, described a couple appearing to argue near the University of York, where she worked. In addition, police obtained CCTV footage showing a suspicious man at the back of Claudia's house. On the night of March 18th and the early morning of March 19th, the man, described as wearing a black hoodie, matched descriptions given by witnesses from the reported sightings. However, despite extensive efforts, this individual has never been identified. Only 5 weeks into the investigation, police officially classified the case as a suspected murder, though no body or concrete evidence was found to confirm Claudia's fate. Over the years, North Yorkshire Police collected thousands of witness statements and conducted numerous searches, but the case remained unsolved. In 2013, a newly established unit dedicated to cold cases re-examined the evidence using advanced forensic techniques. This led to the discovery of new fingerprints and an unidentified man's DNA on a cigarette butt found in Claudia's car. 6 men were arrested in connection with the case, but all were later released without charge. With no resolution, 2 main theories have dominated discussions about what happened to Claudia. One theory suggests that she may have deliberately disappeared. Claudia had taken multiple trips to Cyprus before her disappearance, and the last text message on her phone came from a male friend in Cyprus. Some speculated that she might have chosen to leave the UK and start a new life there. However, when police extended their investigation to Cyprus, they found no evidence that she had travelled there after March 2009. The second and more widely accepted theory is that Claudia was taken and silenced. In a Crime Watch episode focused on her case, Detective Superintendent Ray Galloway revealed that Claudia had complex personal relationships, some of which were unknown to her family and friends. Rumors surfaced that she had been romantically involved with married men, leading to speculation that she may have been harmed by a jealous or vengeful lover. Supporting this theory, police interviewed all male patrons of a particular pub in York to determine if any had been involved with Claudia. Despite these efforts, no solid leads emerged. Some have also linked her disappearance to convicted criminal Christopher Halliwell, who was found guilty of abducting and murdering 2 women. Halliwell's second known victim disappeared exactly 2 years to the day after Claudia, leading some criminologists to suggest a pattern in his crimes. Additionally, there was at least one reported sighting of Claudia and Halliwell together, further fueling speculation. Claudia's mother has been particularly vocal in urging the police to investigate Halliwell as a suspect, believing he may be responsible for her daughter's disappearance. However, law enforcement has not been able to confirm any direct connection between Halliwell and Claudia's case. More than a decade later, the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence remains unsolved. Despite continued efforts from her family, the police, and the public, no definitive answers have been found. Her case highlights the challenges of solving long-term missing persons investigations and the devastating impact these cases have on families left without closure. The mystery of what happened to Claudia continues to haunt those who knew her, and until new evidence emerges, her fate remains unknown. The disappearance of 40-year-old Amber Manthorne took place on the 7th of July, 2022, and, at first, investigators were baffled and asked for the public's assistance in the case. But it's since come to light that someone close to her may have been responsible. Amber hails from Port Alberni, Vancouver Island, one of the country's largest islands. Her older sister Shannon describes her as a fun-loving and spirited person who keeps everyone on their toes. When she was a child, she added that Amber was someone who worked hard, made sure to look after herself, and had a lot to look forward to in her life. She decided to possibly get married and have children one day, something that did not appeal to her in the past. She was well known and liked in her community, and her family states that people still come up to them on the streets often to ask if there have been any developments in her case, despite it being more than 2 years old. It's unclear who reported Amber missing, but sources state that this was done on the 8th of July, 2022, after she'd not been seen or heard from for more than 24 hours. That's when the Royal Canadian Mounted Police appealed to the public to be on the lookout for her while they started their investigation. The following day, her family became even more concerned for her well-being when her car, a white 2021 Jeep Compass, was found abandoned just south of Nanaimo, and the case was handed over to the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit. Following this, Amber's family, friends and volunteers from the community started a search in the backcountry areas between Port Alberni and Nanaimo, where her Jeep was found. The search lasted for weeks, but no further clues were found. During interviews with those close to her, it was revealed that she was likely in the company of her boyfriend, Justin Hall, and that he was likely the last one to see her before she vanished. But when investigators spoke to him, he stated that he hadn't seen her that day and that he had no idea what may have happened to her. Unfortunately, Justin passed away shortly before the first anniversary of Amber's disappearance, though it's not been revealed how he lost his life. This means that any information he may have had on the case is now forever lost. Investigators have since asked that anyone who was close to Justin and who may have information on the case come forward, since he's now considered to be the #1 suspect in her disappearance thanks to further leads that were uncovered during the investigation. This includes some very suspicious activity that was captured by CCTV security cameras. The footage was obtained from a Husky gas station on 3rd Avenue and has since been released to the public in case they have more information on what is seen in the video. It shows Amber's Jeep arriving at the gas station, but when the driver steps out, it's Justin, not Amber. He's then seen opening the driver's side back door and removing a large blue suitcase from the back seat. He takes it to the back of the car, opens the trunk, and attempts to put it in the trunk. But as is seen in the footage, he's unable to fit it due to a large plastic tote that's already in the trunk. And after many unsuccessful attempts, he's forced to return the suitcase to the back seat. Neither the plastic tote nor the suitcase have ever been found, and it's unclear whether they'll shed light on anything in the case. But investigators feel strongly that they will. They believe there is foul play involved, and that Justin knew what had happened to her. They've since released a timeline in the case, starting on the 7th of July, when Amber was captured on security footage at 3:27 p.m. inside of a BYOW Foods in Port Alberni. She made a few purchases at the store and was then seen leaving in her car. Her Jeep was seen again driving west on Pacific Rim Highway at 3:35 p.m. and shortly after, she arrived at her house and she was never seen again. The next day, at 12:22 a.m., Justin made a call to United Cabs, where he ordered a taxi. The cab was seen heading in a westerly direction. Keep in mind that this was just after midnight. About 4 hours later, at 4:17 a.m., Amber's car is seen driving on the Pacific Rim Highway, headed in the direction of Port Alberni. Following this, he traveled to the gas station, where he was seen trying to rearrange the luggage that he had in the vehicle. The Jeep is then seen once again at a McDonald's restaurant on Johnston Road, where Justin buys some food at 7:02 a.m. An hour later, Amber's colleagues realized that she didn't show up for work, and at 9:22 a.m., Justin was seen buying items at a Walmart in Nanaimo. This was about 4.5 hours after he was captured by cameras at the gas station. His suspicious behavior continued after this, as he was planning on traveling to the mainland in Amber's Jeep without informing anyone. It's known that he purchased a ferry ticket at the Duke Point terminal, after which he fell in behind the other cars that were waiting to be loaded. But then, he seemingly had second thoughts, as he could be seen leaving the queue just after 11 a.m., never getting on the ferry and driving away. The next day, investigators were informed that the Jeep had been found, but that Amber was nowhere to be seen. Searches were conducted in the areas surrounding the car, but nothing further was found. Investigators stated that they believed Amber owned a phone case that held several bank and credit cards, and had asked the public to be on the lookout for it since it was never found. Justin's cell phone was also never recovered. Strangely, Amber's phone pinged off several towers in the Alberni Valley area for days after she disappeared, and it may be a vital clue in the case. The authorities have since revealed that they believe Amber is no longer alive, and that she likely met with foul play, possibly at the hands of her boyfriend. But since he can't be interviewed, this remains speculation. Investigators have asked that anyone with information on the case contact the Port Alberni RCMP at 250-723-2424, quoting police file number 2022-6674. Alternatively, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Imagine the fear of knowing your loved one is missing in a foreign country, completely out of your reach. The investigation is no longer in your hands. All you can do is wait. This is the harrowing reality for the family of 32-year-old Charlotte Peet, a British journalist who mysteriously disappeared while in São Paulo, Brazil. Her movements before she vanished only deepen the mystery. Charlotte boarded a flight to Brazil in November 2024 without telling her family why. Months later, on February 8, 2025, she was last seen in São Paulo. Before her disappearance, Charlotte had been traveling. She met a friend in Rio de Janeiro on March 15th and stayed at a hostel in Copacabana until February 17th, when she moved to another hostel in Botafogo. Then, she was never heard from again. But police uncovered something concerning. Charlotte's last known location was in a slum area called Morro de Babilonia, an area that has raised serious concerns. Authorities have been trying to track her through her phone, but it's proven difficult. Her Brazilian phone, it can't receive calls. Yet strangely, Her British number has been receiving text messages and calls. Then came the first major breakthrough. CCTV footage surfaced from February 15th, showing Charlotte at a bar in Rio. She seemed relaxed. She even took selfies. In another video, Charlotte was seen at her hostel reception desk, dropping off a bundle of laundry. She waited for a receipt, then walked away. Carrying 2 black bags, one much larger than the other, along with a plastic bag of food. But what happened after that? Investigators later uncovered more CCTV images, showing Charlotte on a bus in Rio and sitting at a bar near Copacabana Beach. That bus ride? It happened on the same day she vanished. Then came another strange clue. Charlotte purchased a ticket to travel from São Paulo to Rio, but she never used it. This has led authorities to consider another possibility, that she may have vanished voluntarily and is choosing not to contact her family. In the weeks that followed, investigators searched hospitals and morgues, fearing the worst. But they found no trace of her. Her family believes Charlotte may have been planning to return home. Before she disappeared, she posted on Facebook, asking if anyone knew of a double room to rent in London. They're also worried about her well-being, as she has struggled with a party lifestyle in Brazil before, an issue that once forced her to briefly return to London before heading back to South America. Now, they just want answers. For now, Charlotte Peet remains missing. You're urged to contact the Brazilian authorities immediately if you see her or have any information. When people go missing abroad, it can be even harder than usual for families and friends to locate their missing loved ones. Different languages and customs can frustrate the search and the searchers. In the case of Jesse Galganov, it added to the confusion in an already puzzling case. Jesse disappeared while on a hiking trip in Peru in 2017. He was 22 years old at the time and had graduated college a few months earlier. He was described as a bright young man who planned to go to medical school to become a doctor. But before that, he wanted to go on a gap year. Jesse was an experienced traveler and hiker and looked forward to seeing new sights in South America and Asia. The first stop in his gap year was Peru. He arrived in Lima on September 24th and spent a couple of days seeing the sights in the city. He kept in touch with his friends and family back home, especially his mother in Canada. After a few days, Jesse took an 8-hour bus trip to Huaraz, further north. The city sits just outside the Huascarán National Park. The Peruvian Andes overlook the city, and it's a popular spot for tourists. Jesse arrived in Huaraz on the morning of September 28, 2017, and set about getting to his hostel, Camey House. He was captured on CCTV walking towards the hostel and arrived at 6:40 a.m. He spent the day in Huaraz, gathering supplies and visiting various supermarkets. He also talked with people at the hostel and his friends back home. The people he met at the hostel said he was excited about his travels and was in good spirits. Jesse spent the day at the hostel, then set out early the following morning for the Santa Cruz Trail. He told his mother it would be about a 4-day hike, and he wouldn't have reception during that time. He didn't want her to worry and said he would be back in touch on October 2nd. He would need to be back in civilization by then because he had a return bus ticket for that day. Jesse was on a budget and wouldn't want to waste money on a ticket for a trip he wasn't certain he would take. October 2nd came and went, and Jesse's mother didn't hear from him. After a few more days, she got very worried and started to reach out to his friends. They hadn't heard from him either. It didn't seem unbelievable that Jesse might change his plans and take a longer hiking route, but his friends thought it was strange that he would let his mother worry. Jesse's mother contacted authorities in Peru, Canada, and the US, as Jesse was a dual citizen and started the investigation into his disappearance. At first, it wasn't clear if Jesse made it to the trail at all, or even to the hostel. The hostel owner first said that he had, but then denied it. In the end, Snapchat messages from the hostel, as well as the CCTV footage, proved he had been there. The trial was harder to prove. According to the park service that administered the trail, there was no one registered on the trail the day Jesse went hiking. He hadn't paid the registration fee at the trailhead, but that didn't necessarily mean that he hadn't gone ahead with the hike. It could have been due to the fact that the people working weren't actual employees, and proper protocol might not have been followed. This confusion caused some delay in the investigation, as Jesse's family considered the possibility that he might have been attacked on his way to the trailhead. A privately hired search team eventually found evidence that Jesse had made it onto the trail. 2 French tourists had seen Jesse on October 1st, the day before. He had arrived at the Tolopampa camp, where they were staying late. He told them that he was late because he'd gotten disoriented and was suffering from headaches. It seemed as if he had altitude sickness. The next day, he was again in good spirits and left early after breakfast. The final sighting of Jesse was at 3:30 p.m. on October 1st, when he was asked by a group of Czech hikers for some water near Punta Union Pass. Jesse was definitely on the trail and seemed close to finishing it. It was either on the final day of the trip or on the afternoon of the penultimate day that something went wrong. If Jesse did run into trouble on the trail, his body has never been found. Neither have any of his belongings, which were brightly colored. The trail isn't for novices, but it was well trafficked, and if Jesse was somewhere nearby, someone would likely have found him. It's possible, though, that he got disoriented and might have wandered off the trail and gotten lost in the jungle. Foul play is also a possibility. Some believe Jesse might have been attacked and robbed while on his hike, and that his body was purposefully hidden. Jesse is described as being 5 feet 10 inches and weighing 170 pounds. He had brown hair and brown eyes, was wearing black clothing, and carried a hiking pack with a Canadian flag patch on one side. His bag contained a 1-person tent, a camping mattress, and other camping essentials. Anyone with information is asked to contact helpusfindjesse@gmail.com. Kevin Winters was described as a free-spirited person who had moved to Maui, Hawaii on a whim 14 years before he vanished without a trace. Nobody knew of anybody who would want to harm him or any reason why he would want to disappear. But he did just that in September of 2021 and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Kevin was 51 at the time of his disappearance. He grew up in Michigan as one of 4 siblings. When he was a teenager, he had gotten into a dirt bike accident that left him with one leg shorter than the other. In 2007, Kevin left Michigan with just a single bag to visit Maui. His family believed he would only be there for about a month, but Kevin fell in love with the island and decided to stay. He lived a simple life, working at the North Shore hostel in exchange for his room. His mother would also send him money every month or so he could survive. By all accounts, Kevin was someone who got along with everyone. He didn't have a criminal record and didn't use illegal substances. He drank, but didn't have a drinking problem. But at the end of August of 2021, something very out of character happened. He was apparently caught stealing a co-worker's phone that was left out in the communal area. He was fired and given a week to move out. On September 1st, he left the hostel for the final time. The next day, Kevin spoke with his mother, Maxine, on the phone. It was something he did almost every night, and nothing seemed unusual to Maxine. The conversation was short and sweet. According to his mother, it would be the last time she heard from him. A few days passed, and there was no call from Kevin. He didn't respond when Maxine called, and no other family members were able to get in contact with him. According to Kevin's family, they called the Maui Police Department on September 8th, though a report wasn't officially filed until September 19th. After he was reported missing, Kevin's family was able to get a hold of his bank records. It's not clear where he spent the night after leaving the hostel, but his family believed that he spent the night in a storage unit that he rented. The next record of him was at the Maui Brewing Company at about 8:40 p.m. This was about an hour away from Kevin's storage unit, and he would have had to have gotten there on public transit, as he didn't have a working vehicle. At 9:45 p.m., Kevin was spotted on CCTV, depositing a check at an ATM at the First Hawaiian Bank near the brewery. His family found this extremely strange. Even though Maxine would send him money regularly, there was no evidence that he deposited the money into his account very often. The next day, he was caught on CCTV at the same ATM, depositing another check. He was wearing the same clothes. This would be the last known trace of Kevin. Nobody in Maui has seen or heard from Kevin since his disappearance, and his family doesn't believe that he would willingly disappear. He also left $1,200 in his bank account and didn't collect his last paycheck. Kevin is described as a white male with brown hair and blue eyes. He was 5 feet 7 inches and weighed 155 pounds when he vanished. His right leg is shorter than his left, and he would normally wear black shoes with lifts to try to ease the pain in his hip that this caused. A $2,000 reward is offered for any information leading to Kevin. Information can be passed on to the Maui County Police Department at 808-244-6400. For the past 11 years, the family of Anthony Stammers has been making appeals for information on his disappearance. When he left his family home in Colchester in 2012, it was as if he vanished into thin air. Since then, there's been little update on this strange missing person case. Anthony was a creative young man who liked writing and playing guitar. He would occasionally write music, and his mother would sit and listen to his new songs. He had previously suffered from depression, but it was a condition that he was managing. In the spring of 2012, Anthony's grandfather, Arthur, passed away. It was a real blow to Anthony, who had been close to his grandfather, and it naturally took another toll on his mental health. According to his family, they were all going through the grief together. Anthony didn't appear to be at a point of crisis and had been making plans for the future. In particular, he planned to move to Bristol to live closer to his older brother. May 27th was the day before Anthony's funeral. Anthony's mother, Julie, was at home when Anthony left the house at 10 a.m. He was going to London to meet some friends, and he would be back the next day. Later that same day, he sent a text to his mother, asking her to make sure his black pants were ready for the funeral the next day. It seemed as if he had every intention of showing up to give the reading that he'd been planning to do. But the next day, there was no sign of Anthony. His parents couldn't get a hold of him, and they immediately knew something was wrong. It turned out that Anthony had never arrived to see his friends the day before either. The police were contacted, and early on in the investigation, they discovered Anthony used an ATM not far from his home. Not long after he left the house, he withdrew £140 from a machine in Colchester. Unfortunately, there were no CCTV cameras at the site, but the police had no reason to believe it wasn't Anthony who had withdrawn the money. His bank account hasn't been touched since. The next few months were spent searching through CCTV footage from Colchester, and ground searches also took place, but no trace of him was ever found. Since then, the case has gone cold. Anthony's brother appeared on TV to raise awareness about the case, and the family has fundraised for the Missing People charity. Anthony was 27 years old when he disappeared. He was 5 feet 10 inches tall, of a medium build, with short, dark brown hair. When he was last seen, he was wearing blue jeans and a blue and red check shirt, and was carrying a black satchel. He may have been wearing a black New York Yankees baseball cap and a beige jacket. Anyone with information on the case can contact the police on 101 with reference number 12001/452 or the Missing People charity at 116,000. Samantha Murphy, a 51-year-old woman from Ballarat, Victoria, disappeared under suspicious circumstances on February 4, 2024, during her usual morning run. Her sudden disappearance shocked her family and the community, triggering a large-scale search. Despite extensive efforts, her body has not been found. However, police have charged a man with her murder. Born on March 30th, 1972, Samantha lived in Ballarat, a rural city in the Central Highlands of Victoria, with her husband, Michael, and their 3 children. The couple ran a small business near their home. Samantha was described as a slim, 173-centimeter Caucasian woman with shoulder-length blonde hair. On the evening of February 3rd, 2024, Samantha and her husband hosted a dinner for close friends. During the gathering, she shared her plans for a 14-kilometer, 8.7-mile run the following morning in Wuwukurrung Regional Park, a location she frequented. The next day, around 7 a.m. EDT, Samantha was captured on CCTV, leaving her home for the run. She was expected to return home in time for a family event at 11 a.m. When she failed to arrive, her family contacted the police. Her mobile phone briefly connected to a cellular tower in Buninyong, about 14 kilometers, 8.7 miles, from her home, but the signal wasn't strong enough to pinpoint her location. The SOS function on her Apple Watch, which she was wearing, was never activated. GPS data revealed she had completed about 7 kilometers, 4.3 miles, of her run through Wuwukurrung Regional Park, reaching Mount Clear, where an anomaly or disturbance in the GPS data was noted. Authorities launched an extensive search, involving Victoria Police's Search and Rescue Squad, dog units, mounted branch, and air wing, along with the Victoria State Emergency Service, Parks Victoria, and the Country Fire Authority. The initial search focused on Wuwukurrung Regional Park and nearby bushland before expanding to areas like Black Hill and Brown Hill in Ballarat. Despite thorough efforts, no trace of Samantha was found, and investigators ruled out the possibility of a medical emergency or her intentionally leaving the area. After 5 days, the search was scaled back, and the case was handed over to the Missing Persons Squad. As weeks passed without significant developments, police began treating Samantha's disappearance as a suspected homicide. By February 23rd, investigators publicly stated they believed she was deceased and suspected the involvement of one or more individuals. On March 6, 2024, police arrested Patrick Orrin Stevenson, a 22-year-old man from Scotsburn, in connection with Samantha's disappearance. The following day, he was charged with murder. Police believe Stevenson encountered Samantha at Mount Clear, where they suspect the crime occurred. Stevenson was not known to Samantha or her family. While Samantha's body has not been located, some of her belongings were recovered during the investigation. On May 29, 2024, police conducting a targeted search on a property near Durham Lead, about 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles south of Buninyong, discovered her wallet, containing her ID cards and mobile phone, on the bank of an agricultural dam. Samantha's disappearance has left her family devastated and her community shaken. Her husband, Michael, and their children continue to endure the heartbreak of unanswered questions, while the Ballarat community rallies for justice. Police are determined to find Samantha's body and strengthen their case against Stevenson. They urge anyone with information about Samantha's disappearance to come forward. This case has brought attention to the pain and uncertainty faced by families of missing persons. Samantha's loved ones and community continue to hope for closure and justice in the face of this tragedy. In the heart of the American South, between the quiet country roads of Sardis, Mississippi, and the city streets of Memphis, Tennessee, an ordinary drive turned into a haunting mystery. A man disappeared. A car was left behind, and a family was left with questions that no one has been able to answer. This is the story of Wayne Miller. Wayne was just 33 years old, a son, a brother, a father. Described by his loved ones as funny, warm-hearted, and deeply devoted to his family, especially his mother. He lived in Memphis, but had ties to Sardis, Mississippi, where he would often visit. He was dependable, grounded, the kind of person you could count on to check in, which made what happened next all the more chilling. On February 3rd, 2025, Wayne had been in Sardis, a small town located in Panola County, Mississippi. He was preparing to head back home to Memphis, roughly an hour's drive north. Before he left, he made a phone call, one that would later haunt his mother's memory. "Mama," he said, "you got a birthday coming up. I'm gonna get you something nice." That was the last time she ever heard his voice. Surveillance footage later confirmed that Wayne's vehicle was seen leaving Sardis, heading northbound on Highway 51, a road that eventually connects to Interstate 55, leading into Memphis. Everything seemed fine, nothing suspicious. Just a man going home. But Wayne never arrived. 2 days later, on February 5th, 2025, his vehicle, a grey Dodge Journey, was found in South Memphis, parked near Zodiac Park, not far from East Person Avenue. When officers arrived, the scene was strange. One of the car's tires was missing. The keys were left inside the vehicle. There were no signs of struggle, and no sign of Wayne. Just an abandoned car and silence. No calls, no messages, no social media activity. His phone went dark. The location itself raised eyebrows. Zodiac Park and the surrounding area are known for being a high-crime zone. Wayne's family said he had no reason to be there. He wasn't the type to just leave his vehicle in a neighborhood he didn't know. He wasn't in trouble. He wasn't on the run. He had plans for his mother's birthday. He had every intention of getting home. But something, or someone, derailed that journey. Was he targeted? Did he meet someone who meant him harm? Was there a carjacking gone wrong? Or did someone use his trust against him? As the days turned into weeks, Wayne's family grew desperate for answers. His disappearance gained traction on social media. Missing posters were circulated. Family members organized search efforts and pleaded for tips. But despite their efforts, no new leads emerged. Not a single confirmed sighting. Not a single update. Wayne Miller had seemingly vanished into thin air. Wayne is a black male, standing 6 feet tall, weighing about 240 pounds. He has black hair, brown eyes, and usually wears a beard. When he disappeared, he was likely wearing casual clothes, though specific details remain unclear. The Panola County Sheriff's Department and Memphis Police both opened investigations, but to date, no arrests have been made, and no persons of interest have been publicly identified. Wayne's disappearance shattered his family's world. His mother still listens to that final voicemail. His children still ask when their dad is coming home. And his siblings are still stuck in a cycle of hope and heartbreak. They've described the silence as torture. Every time the phone rings, they wonder if it's him. Every day that passes, they wonder if he's out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. They've asked the public for help. They've asked the police for updates. They've begged for someone, anyone, to come forward. Because somebody knows something. If you have any information about Wayne Miller's whereabouts or what happened on the day he disappeared, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, please contact the Panola County Sheriff's Department or Crime Stoppers in Memphis. You can remain anonymous. Someone out there holds the key to this case. Maybe it's you. Wayne Miller didn't just walk away from his life. He didn't abandon his family. Something happened between Sardis and Memphis, something that turned an ordinary drive into a cold case. His story isn't over. Let's not let it fade into the background. Help us share his name, share his face, share his story, because Wayne deserves to be found, and his family deserves peace. 75-year-old Candy Lee Sturgil and 83-year-old Shirley Weaver from Susanville, California, were the best of friends. The two women shared a love for the outdoors, and could often be found exploring the California wilderness, always searching for their next favorite hiking spot. When they weren't out on an adventure, Candy and Shirley spent time with their families. Both were described as kind, caring, and full of life. But in October 2020, what should have been just another outdoor adventure took a tragic turn, one that left Candy missing to this day. On October 25th, 2020, Candy and Shirley climbed into Candy's Toyota RAV4 and headed toward Wendell, California. Witnesses later recalled seeing them about 10 miles from Wendell that day. After that, the two women vanished without a trace. When they failed to return home, their worried families contacted the Lassen County Sheriff's Office, reporting them missing. A widespread search was immediately launched, with officers searching on foot and by air, covering miles of rugged terrain. Candy and Shirley's family, friends and volunteers joined the effort, desperately hoping to find them. But in those first critical days, no trace of them or their vehicle was found. Then, on November 10th, 2020, searchers made a disturbing discovery. Near Mixie Flat Road, along the California-Nevada border, they found Candy's abandoned Toyota RAV4. Inside the vehicle, they discovered Shirley's lifeless body. Outside the car, a chilling detail caught investigators' attention. Someone had spelled out the word "help" on the ground, using various items, in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to signal for rescue. A closer look at the vehicle revealed more troubling signs. One of the tires was flat, and the hood was left open, suggesting that Candy may have been trying to fix the problem before disappearing. Despite an intensive search of the surrounding area, Candy was nowhere to be found. Authorities have found no evidence of foul play, and Candy's disappearance is not considered suspicious. However, her whereabouts remain unknown. Her family and friends continue to search, hoping to bring her home and finally get the answers they so desperately need. Candy Lee Sturgil is described as a white female, standing 5 feet 6 inches, weighing 145 pounds with blonde hair and brown eyes. If you have any information about her case, please contact the Lassen County Sheriff's Office at 530-257-6121, referencing case number 20103-0007. Jean-T had traveled all over the world, but no matter where she went, she always returned home to Ireland for Christmas. That tradition, however, came to an abrupt end in July 2020 when she mysteriously vanished in Lisbon, Portugal, leaving behind more questions than answers. At 41 years old, Jean was one of 5 siblings. She had spent several months exploring Portugal, but her trip was coming to an end. She had already booked a flight home for July 15th. Just 2 days before her departure, Jean spoke with her sister over the phone. Everything seemed completely normal. She was in good spirits, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. But shortly after that call, something went wrong. Jean was last seen leaving the hostel where she had been staying. She took only her handbag, phone, and bank cards. Yet she left behind her main travel bag, a second phone, and, most concerning of all, her passport. After that, she was never seen or heard from again. When her loved ones couldn't reach her, her boyfriend reported her missing. But despite this, Portuguese authorities never officially listed her as a missing person. This baffling decision has left her family frustrated and heartbroken. They believe the investigation was mishandled and claim that most of what they know about Jen's disappearance came from private investigators, not law enforcement. Through their efforts, Jean's family uncovered a disturbing piece of information. Jean had allegedly told a hostel worker that she was planning to meet a male friend in Brazil. But what makes this even stranger is that she expected to return, as she left most of her belongings behind. To this day, the identity of this man remains unknown, and no one knows if Jean met up with him before she disappeared. Adding to the mystery, Jean's second phone, which she had left at the hostel, also vanished. But who took it, and why? Her family does not believe she vanished by choice. Even if she had intended to leave, Traveling without her passport would have been nearly impossible. Investigators have also ruled out suicide, yet the circumstances surrounding her disappearance remain unclear. Portuguese authorities later stated that John was not placed on the missing persons register because they didn't want potential suspects to panic, a decision that has only added to the frustration and speculation. Jean-Tige is described as 5 feet 5 inches tall, with a slim build, blue eyes, and brown hair. If you have any information about her disappearance, please contact LBT Global at +44 198 371 8802. On the morning of August 31st, 1998, Emma Tresp set off on what should have been a peaceful summer road trip. The 71-year-old woman had just left her daughter's home in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and was heading toward the Benedictine monastery near Pecos, New Mexico, for a retreat. She had taken this route many times before and was very familiar with the area. Despite her age, Emma was in excellent health. She had no history of memory loss, confusion, or any mental health issues. So, when she never arrived at her destination, her family knew something was wrong. Her disappearance remains one of the most well-known missing persons cases linked to the Pecos National Forest, an area where several individuals have vanished without a trace. When Emma's family couldn't reach her, they quickly became concerned. Authorities were contacted, and a search effort was launched. Investigators were able to piece together the last known movements of Emma before she went missing. At approximately 3 p.m., Emma was spotted at a gas station in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. This was the last confirmed sighting of her. Based on the distance from that location to the monastery, she should have arrived by 4:30 p.m. at the latest. However, she never made it. The weather conditions that day were ideal. Temperatures were around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius. There was no rain, and plenty of daylight remained. Even if Emma had taken a slight detour, she still would have had several hours of clear visibility to complete her journey. Investigators determined that she had 3 possible routes to reach her destination. She could have taken Interstate 40, turning off at Highway 63 near Roe. Another option was traveling along Route 66, then heading north on Highway 3, which would connect back to Highway 63. The most likely route, however, was Interstate 40 to Klein Corners, then south on Highway 285 toward Glorieta Pass, a well-traveled scenic road. Nearly 2 weeks later, on September 13th, 1998, Emma's white 1997 Honda Civic was finally located in an isolated area. A local resident recognized her car after seeing a missing person flyer and reported it to police. The vehicle was found on Forest Road 63A, about 10 miles from Route 63, in the rugged Glorieta Baldy Peak area. When officers arrived, they discovered that the car was locked and lodged against a dirt embankment. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of an accident, and nothing to suggest that anyone else had been in the vehicle. Inside the car, everything Emma would have needed to seek help remained untouched. Her mobile phone, money, and extra clothing were all left behind, an unsettling detail that only deepened the mystery. At first, investigators believed that Emma might have left on foot, hoping to find help. However, as search efforts intensified, that theory quickly fell apart. A massive search operation was launched, involving over 200 people, including Army National Guard helicopters, cadaver dogs, and search and rescue teams. But what they discovered made no sense. Despite an exhaustive effort, search dogs could only pick up her scent near the car, nowhere else. The only footprints found belonged to Emma, and they simply circled her vehicle. There was no indication that she had walked away into the wilderness. How could she just vanish? The circumstances of her disappearance remain deeply unsettling. Some speculate that she may have become disoriented and wandered into the dense forest. Others believe something more mysterious happened. To this day, Emma Tresp has never been found. She is described as a Caucasian woman with graying hair and green eyes. She has a mole on the right side of her nose and wears glasses, If you have any information about her case, please contact the New Mexico State Police at 505-827-9076. It was the early hours of May 1st, 2017, an ordinary day in Liberty, Missouri, when Desiree Ferris and her sister got into a car driven by Robert Keegan, a man they both knew. The three spent much of the day together, embarking on various adventures, including visiting abandoned houses and places rumored to be hotspots for illegal activities. Around 4:30 that afternoon, Desiree was dropped off at a McDonald's at 31st Street and Van Brunt Boulevard in Kansas City. Her sister was supposedly taken home, but conflicting eyewitness statements suggest that she may have also exited the car at 31st Street. In today's modern world, where people are constantly connected through their phones, an unanswered text or sudden silence can be a cause for concern. That's precisely what happened in Desiree's case. When her mother, Patty, was unable to reach her, she didn't immediately panic. But when she checked Desiree's account activity and saw that everything had stopped abruptly in the early morning hours, worry quickly set in. With no sign of her 18-year-old daughter, Patty reported Desiree missing. Family and friends wasted no time, organizing a search party in the area where her phone was last pinged. They knocked on doors, asked locals if they had seen her, and combed through the neighborhood. But despite multiple searches, Desiree was nowhere to be found. Through interviews and witness accounts, investigators reconstructed a timeline of her movements that day, tracing her last known whereabouts. While at McDonald's, Desiree encountered a man named Mark Arzola, who pulled up alongside the road. Witnesses say she got into his vehicle, along with a female acquaintance. This woman was reportedly dropped off a short distance away at another McDonald's, while Desiree stayed with Arzola. Later, during questioning, Arzola claimed he took Desiree to his home on Highland Street, located in the Marlboro neighborhood of Kansas City. While at his house, between 10:20 and 11 that night, Desiree sent 23 text messages to Robert Keegan, the man she had spent the day with. Then, a communication gap followed. At 1 a.m., she sent a single message to her sister, saying she was on her way. An hour later, at 2 a.m., she made her last known phone call to an unidentified number. Shortly after, she also sent a text to the same recipient. At 3 a.m. on May 2nd, she logged into Facebook from her phone. Her final activity came 2 hours later at 5 a.m. when she sent a last text message, again to the same unknown number. From that moment on, all communication stopped. Desiree never called, texted, or logged in again. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. Investigators later discovered that either Keegan or Arzola had been expected to drop her off at a friend's house that night, but she never arrived. While Patty knew her daughter had been with these men, she had never met them personally. As the investigation progressed, new leads emerged. Authorities were led to Blue River and Bannister Road after an employee at a Phillips 66 gas station claimed to have seen Desiree on the night of May 2nd. She was allegedly in the company of a male companion, though his identity remains unknown. Further cell phone pings led police to Grandview Road and the Trolley Trail, prompting thorough searches of those areas. Investigators also searched 3 abandoned homes located at 83rd Street and Hillcrest Road, Oakley Avenue and East 27th Terrace, and 93rd Street and Grandview Road. Despite extensive efforts, no evidence was found, no phone, clothing, or trace of Desiree. By June 2017, authorities launched another large-scale search after receiving multiple tips suggesting she had been seen in Swope Park, a 2 to 3 mile stretch of land. More than 80 people, including volunteers, friends, and family members, joined the search. But once again, there was no sign of Desiree. The case was officially classified as endangered, as growing concerns mounted about what might have happened to her. As more details surfaced, investigators discovered discrepancies in Arzola's version of events. Keegan's statements also contained contradictions. Then, just days after Desiree disappeared, Keegan was arrested in an unrelated case alongside 5 others, on charges involving narcotics and weapons conspiracy. One of the biggest revelations was that Keegan, not Arzola, had dropped Desiree off in the Marlborough neighborhood. Despite all efforts, Desiree Ferris remains missing. She was 18 years old at the time, with brown hair and hazel eyes. She stood at 5 feet 1 inch and weighed approximately 95 pounds. Her family continues to search for answers. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Desiree Ferris, please contact the Liberty Police Department at 816-439-4701. Hildigard Hendrickson. A name once known in academic circles and among mushroom hunting enthusiasts throughout the Pacific Northwest. But on June 8, 2013, this brilliant 79-year-old woman, a retired professor, an experienced forager, vanished without a trace. That morning, Hildigard set off alone on a familiar kind of journey. She left her home in Seattle, driving her light green 2012 Ford Focus toward the Minnow Creek trailhead near Lake Wenatchee in Washington state. She was headed to a burn area, scorched by wildfire just a year earlier, now rich with the delicate, elusive morel mushrooms she loved to hunt. This wasn't unusual. In fact, it was her passion. Born in 1934 in Yugoslavia to a family of German descent, Hildigard's early life was marked by war and displacement. As a child, she fled with her family when Russian forces advanced during World War II. They sought safety in Austria, and from there, she built a new life. Years later, she made the bold move to America, settling in Seattle, where she pursued higher education with fierce determination. She earned 3 degrees from the University of Washington. In 1967, she joined the faculty at Seattle University, where she would go on to teach for nearly 3 decades. But it was outside the classroom, in the forests, where she truly came alive. Her love for mycology, the study of fungi, was sparked in the 1970s during a simple outing with her husband and a neighbor. From that moment on, mushrooms weren't just a hobby, they were a lifelong calling. She led field trips, she mentored newcomers, she taught others how to forage safely. Even in her late 70s, she was still out there, navigating rugged terrain, basket in hand, eyes scanning the forest floor. So when she arrived at that trailhead on June 8th, it was business as usual. That day, she briefly spoke with a man, Dr. Anthony Okos, a cardiologist, who warned her that the trail was steep. He worried it might be too challenging for her, but Hildigard was strong. Those who knew her said she was fit, active, and more than capable. She wore a colorful shirt, a tan vest with pockets, a straw hat, and carried a silver basket and a blue hiking pole. And at around 1:30 p.m., 2 people, including a Forest Service ranger, saw her in the woods, cheerfully picking mushrooms just off the trail. That was the last time anyone saw Hildigard Hendrickson alive. Her car, left unlocked with the windows slightly cracked, sat untouched. She never returned. Because she lived alone, her absence wasn't immediately reported. It wasn't until June 11th, 3 days later, that another mushroom hunter noticed something strange. That same green Ford Focus, parked in the same spot for days. When he peered inside, he found a purse with ID. It was Hildigard's. The alarm was raised. Authorities responded that evening. Search teams mobilized. Helicopters flew overhead. K9 units scoured the woods. Hildigard's son, Andrew, joined the effort. A set of footprints, possibly hers, was found early in the search, sparking hope. But hope began to fade. The terrain was harsh. Some areas were cleared by fire, but others were dense, difficult to search. Still, rescuers pushed on, combing through high-probability zones again and again. They found a plastic water bottle, nearly new. but no other clues. By day 6, more than 2,500 man-hours had gone into the search. Every inch within half a mile of her car had been scoured, some places up to 8 times, and yet nothing. On June 16th, the official search was suspended. Flyers were posted. Her face, her name, spread through local communities, but no trace of Hildigard was ever found.